Hey there, everyone. It's Sam with another Friday video for you, at least Friday for me now. If you're listening to the podcast, a week or so later, maybe a different day, that's okay. Happy Friday or whatever day it is. Welcome aboard. Wanted to talk to you again about something else. Another story I consumed, I read this time, but one that I watched, a movie. And I know this is primarily a writing series or a writing podcast, but well, first of all, I titled this video. I'd never watched this sci-fi classic until now, so let me kind of get your suspense up. A movie I probably should have seen a long time ago and hadn't yet until very recently. It's a very popular, very well-known movie. I'll tell you the title in a minute. I know this has been primarily a writing series, writing podcast, whatever you want to call it. Um, I know movies are like tangential to that, but it's still storytelling. I've talked a lot about tropes and just different conventions of different genres and sci-fi and fantasy and things like that, and how they, many of them can, I guess, equate across different media, in whether novels or film or TV or even possibly video games, comic books, whatever. So yeah, I think I don't know if I'm going to do a movie review for every movie I've seen. I see. I mean, I'm a sci-fi superhero Star Wars guy, so I kind of have my niche, and I know I mean, there are different ones. They're not all that different, but some movies are I feel like are worth talking about and giving a review to. And this one, I think, well, it is one that's also popular again lately. I'll tell you why. But because spoilers, a new sequel came out recently. But I also thought that the fact that I'm very very overdue in seeing it would be noteworthy, and I kind of wanted to get it out there and talk about it now that I've actually seen it. So this is why I'm a bad nerd. Not really. I mean, everyone does everything. I mean, there's too much for any one person to do, and no one can watch everything. But this is why some might consider me a bad sci-fi fan, or just a behind the times person, because until a couple weeks ago, I had never in my life watched The Matrix. That's right, The Matrix is the movie I just watched. There's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, so it came out in '99. I was young. I was 9. I know my parents didn't really show me R-rated movies. I mean, I'm not like complaining about my parents, but some people's standards might consider them strict. And then I went to a conservative college, where R-rated movies were not allowed. And I mean, long story short, I no longer hold all those standards or views for myself. I won't get into all that right here, but basically, I never watched any R-rated movie until I was like 20, 22, 23, not all the way through at least. Um, so, but by that time I was a movie fan definitely. I mean, with all the superhero movies coming out and things like that. I was someone who enjoys movies and even now like I do like even 10 years ago or whatever, because I'm almost 32. So probably almost 9, 10 years ago that I saw my first R-rated movie all the way through. Um, yeah, I mean, even then, I was someone who enjoys movies, likes to keep track of actors and stories and things like that. So I went back and did some catching up. I watched a few years later, I watched the whole Terminator franchise. Some of the other superhero ones I had missed, I guess that I'd never been able to see before. I know there's still famous, well-known R-rated movies that I have never watched. My wife has shown me some, but The Matrix has been on our list for a long time. It's just that once I finally was able to watch it, it wasn't popular anymore. I guess it's still popular, but it was 10, 12, whatever years old. Um, and so it wasn't like the thing people were talking about anymore. So I just never got around to it. I mean, I had seen clips from it. I mean, I knew the premise, of course. I mean, it's a famous movie. I've heard people talk about it. I knew it was like this virtual world that was different from where the real world was dying, and the clip with the red pill and the blue pill. I had seen that, out of context because it's a very famous scene. I've seen video clips of that or whatever, and maybe the fight at the end of the subway between Neo and Agent Smith. I've seen that before, but I had never actually seen the whole movie all the way through until 2 weeks ago. We watched it on New Year's Eve. So I have now seen The Matrix. I'll tell you what I think in just a little bit. Haven't watched the sequels yet. I would like to. I mean, I know everyone says that they're not as good. I'm just the kind of guy who like when I see when I start to appreciate our franchise, I want to see kind of all of it, even if they're not as good, just so I understand the story and understand the kind of the lore and the culture. It's just that we don't have a lot of time to watch movies these days because we have a 1-year-old and we're busy. But I'd like to watch them all eventually. I know they're on Hulu. I think with the two sequels that came out like 2003 are on Hulu, I believe. And then, of course, the new one, Matrix Resurrections, just came out. We haven't seen that yet. I mean, my wife is in, you know, my wife likes it, wants to see it. She didn't make me rush out to the theater, or else we probably would have tried to marathon the trilogy, the first trilogy beforehand. But she wants to see it eventually. So I want to get there eventually. I've heard divisive fan reviews on it. I've heard some people really liked it, some people really didn't, and I can't comment on that right now because I haven't seen it yet. I'm only very new to this franchise. But yeah, so for a variety of complicated reasons, I just now, as a 31-year-old man, watched The Matrix the first time, and filled that gap in my cultural knowledge. So let me tell you what I thought about it. Of course, I liked it. I mean, it's a classic sci-fi adventure. I feel like it's less revolutionary now than no pun intended. I know the third one's called Revolutions, I think, right? I know it's less revolutionary now than it was in 1999. I mean, it's Rachel, my wife, kind of said it was like it's the original work of cyberpunk, or the original like cyberpunk movie where, you know, kind of dystopia kind of thing. You know, obviously we've seen other things now where, you know, the concept of a virtual world that isn't the real world, you know, is not unheard of. You know, I think Ready Player One is a common example. Is a recent common example. Actually, I think when I read the book, one of the reviewers in the book even said like The Matrix meets Willy Wonka, for Ready Player One. So clearly, The Matrix is like that seminal work in our society of real world versus not real world. Even like Inception a little bit. I mean, that wasn't quite the same because it was not a virtual technology world, but more like a dream world. But still, there's some common themes there. So I mean, I know this whole thing about being in an alternate reality or like a virtual reality that isn't the real world isn't new anymore. In '99, it was a little newer. I mean, and obviously, I'm sure The Matrix wasn't the first medium to ever come up with that theme, but maybe one of the first big movies to explore that to that degree. So it was cool. I mean, I think you know, I think if I watched it back in '99, well, first of all, I was 9. I'm sure I wouldn't have had the understanding of story and tropes and genre and stuff that I do today. If I could have watched it as an adult, like go back in time, 1999, when it was new, I don't know. I probably would have appreciated it more. I mean, I still liked it. I still enjoyed the story and the characters and stuff. But I think it's now, I guess I'd say it's like archetypal, like it's the prototype. So, you know, I feel like I've seen stories like this before because a lot of stories are doing what The Matrix has done. It's just that The Matrix was one of the first ones or one of the biggest ones to do it, and I never watched that until now. So that's why it feels. That's why some parts might feel generic, not because it is generic, but because they were the first or one of the big first ones at least. So so yeah, but I mean, but it was a you know, classic, you know, I guess somewhat good guys versus bad guys, but also story, but also like kind of, you know, do you want the truth or do you want I guess like truth versus lies story, or you know kind of, or freedom versus slavery, those kinds of things, and you know the protagonist has to choose between those. So there's some deep human themes there too. Yeah, even in the midst of technology and whatever else. What I thought was interesting, and this is slightly tangential, but so I recently read the book Neuromancer by William Gibson. I did a review on that earlier. You can find it in my video series or in my podcast if you want to scroll down a little bit. Neuromancer by William Gibson. I read it a couple months ago, and book-wise, that's considered like the seminal work of cyberpunk. And again, I mean, cyberpunk isn't a genre I'm super into. I mean, I like sci-fi in general. I have a friend who's really into Gibson, and I kind of wanted to at least give it a shot and see if I liked it. I liked it okay. I may or may not read the sequels eventually because that book has like 2 sequels also, I think. But I'm noticing since I've now recently consumed, I guess, the seminal cyberpunk book and the seminal cyberpunk movie, I'm kind of realizing the similarities in there. And I even I read on Wikipedia just briefly, kind of when I was reading Neuromancer, like what does cyberpunk actually mean as a genre? Like I know it's sci-fi, but like what are the trappings of that genre? And it said there's pretty much always a disparity between like the real world being you know dilapidated and worn down and everything, and the virtual world or the technology world or whatever that means being this idyllic paradise. I mean, not quite, but feeling like the space where everyone can live comfortably, but it's not the real world. Where like the illusion world is rich or affluent or just even just normal, like in the Matrix in '99. But the real world is like harsh and dark and falling apart and stuff like that. So that's pretty much a seminal theme of cyberpunk, I guess. I guess it's broadly dystopian. I mean, or post-apocalyptic. Maybe we're looking to the future and saying like, hey, we don't have good views of the future anymore. That's another tangent. And I was like people used to imagine the future, and it was this bright, idealistic technology, and now we imagine the future, and it's like dystopias and post-apocalyptic, and we could have a whole other conversation about why that is. But yeah, kind of this idea of this future technology and how I guess humanity has this kind of complicated relationship with it, where where we need technology to escape or live in our ideal world, but it's not the real world. So that's a seminal theme of cyberpunk, and even some of the tropes and the character the character like roles I was noticing were familiar. And so Neuromancer also had like the main character was this male hacker. I guess he's like the everyman, but in this world that's a hacker or whatever, who is just kind of living his life. So like Neo in the Matrix, and then he's approached by these shadowy figures. A woman happened in Neuromancer, also happened in the Matrix with Trinity. In Neuromancer, her name is Molly, and she represents some kind of shadowy organization. Also true in both works that somehow sees the truth or has this mission of doing something different and grand or in the cyberpunk world, and needs the main character's help to do it. So just kind of these broadly similar vibes of like an everyman hacker who's good at his job, who's good at his skill, and then is like getting approached and being pulled deeper into this world, realizing what he's gotten himself into, and then kind of we see the world through we see the world, we do world building through his eyes and see the world unfold through his eyes, and then he gets deeper into the mystery and the conflict of it all, and that's a pretty broad summary, but I found that kind of familiar to be true of both works. So yeah, so I liked it, and I like both. And I may continue in the cyberpunk genre. I mean, I know I'm reading a lot and watching a lot. My lists just keep growing, but I might eventually read the sequels to Neuromancer, and I do want to watch the sequels to The Matrix. Again, I don't care if they're not good. I mean, I'm not expecting them to be as good as the first one. I just kind of want to know what happens in the story and things like that. And I'm interested to see where they go from here in the story. I mean, I know there's times when sequels get done to death and they redo everything or they kind of follow the same beats. Again, I have now watched all the Terminator franchise, 6 or 7 movies. I think 6 movies. I think so I so I get how the same plot lines repeat themselves over and over. But I'm gonna watch the sequels anyway and see what I think. But anyway, that was my quick review of The Matrix. 23 years late, but hey, better late than never. And yeah, so I liked it. I've now seen The Matrix. I can join the rest of humanity in being a normal person. Well, I don't know if I'll ever be a normal person, but you know what I mean. So yeah, that cultural gap has been filled for me. And I know this is a writing podcast or a series or a storytelling one, so let me try to apply this to writing. I'll give you today's storytelling tip or writing tip. Has to do with tropes, and I know we've talked before about tropes and how that obviously overuse of tropes isn't a good thing, but using them a little bit can be good. Knowing when to use them and when not to is good. So I'd say when you're writing genre fiction, like especially sci-fi or fantasy, and I know a lot of us are into sci-fi and fantasy, and a lot of us are writing those things. I'm writing superheroes, which is usually considered like a subgenre of sci-fi. Anyway, when you're writing like genre fiction like this, it's helpful to know your tropes and use them to your advantage. Again, don't overuse them, but using a few tropes will help people understand that like what kind of story they're reading. It gives them a framework to what to expect. I think when I reviewed Neuromancer, I was like, I don't know much about this world, but there are some familiar tropes I can connect to. Same thing for The Matrix. I mean, other than what I'd heard from people talking about the movie, if I was going in blind, I didn't really know exactly what the world building was like or exactly what was going on in the world, but holding on to these familiar tropes helps me understand basic things like, okay, he's the good guy, he's the bad guy, he's stuck in this he's trapped in this world, it's a simulation, and here's a central conflict, here's the mission. Latching onto those things, I mean, they sound basic when we think about that, but latching onto those things helps me understand the story. If you're going in blind and know very little about the story of the genre, latching onto familiar tropes will help. So I'd say to those of us, well, any of us, but especially those of us writing sci-fi and fantasy, things like that, use your tropes in a way that helps you so that readers can connect to the story, can find familiar things in it, and be like, oh, I understand what this is, or I understand where this is going, or even implicitly, even if they don't realize they're doing it, your reader will make those connections. But then, of course, you also have to take it off in its own direction, make it its own thing. You can't rely completely on tropes. So once you've established the story as once you've established the main characters and the conflicts and things like that, and the reader's familiar enough with your world, then you have to make it your own and be like, okay, here's where we're going with this. This is now my original story. So, and there's lots of ways to do that. We can talk about that for a different video. But anyway, I wanted to give you my quick review of The Matrix and my quick application for writing. So I hope that helps your writing. Hope that helps your storytelling. Hope you liked Matrix Resurrections. I don't know. I've heard very divided things about it, so I'll get there eventually. Maybe I'll tell you all what I thought. I'm obviously not seeing it in theaters right away because I haven't seen all the rest of them. But anyway, good luck with your writing, reading, everything you're doing this week. Keep rocking, and have a great one. And beware of the virtual world. I don't know. I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna stop. Okay, bye. Thanks.